Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello, welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. It's the whole gang here. Jake Watroba, Justin Sosa, myself, Steven Jodderand at Uncle Sam's Soccer Pod. Boy, it's good to be back. Fellas, how we doing today? Justin? It's been a very busy soccer weekend.
Yeah, I mean, all the leagues are getting back. They're starting their 2020-21 seasons. MLS is still trying to get through 2020. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to be a sports fan right now. There's so much going on.
Jake, obviously the NFL.
Well, hold on here. I actually want to ask Justin a quick question. Did you watch Boa Vista yesterday in Reggie Cannon's debut for the club?
No.
You're our Portuguese expert.
I wasn't going to watch a friendly for Boa Vista. No, yeah, I mean, like, I saw the highlights and his goal and stuff. That was great, but I wasn't going to watch that friendly. I'll wait till the actual league starts.
I figured I'd ask. Steven, you're going to ask me about football.
Yes.
Because that's what we do.
This is, we might as well call this Uncle Sam's NFL Minute here with Jake Watrova and Steven Jotter. And Justin, or listeners are say, Justin's not the biggest NFL guy. Is that correct, Justin?
Yeah, I don't follow football in the slightest.
There you go.
Oh, wait, actually, funny story this past week. My friend, this isn't football, this is baseball, which I also don't really follow that much. My friends asked me to name 3 baseball players, and I got DeGrom, Cespedes, and I was struggling very much on the third player, but then I got Bryce Harper, so I named 3 players. So I give myself a little pat on the back.
That's amazing. It shows you right there. It's a great, Jake, that's a great illustration of how Mike Trout,
yes,
arguably,
I was going to say, you failed to name arguably the greatest player of all time who's playing today. You failed to mention his name when you said one of the 3 players you could think of that play Major League Baseball today.
Mike Trout, I mean, isn't he the best player in the league at the moment? And Justin can't name him off that list. Tells you about how awful MLB markets its players. But more importantly, Jake, the NFL's back. We know in this country the NFL is, well, actually, we probably know in the world the NFL's the most powerful, most not watched, but just has the biggest revenue source of income in America, in the world. It's the top league. It's the league that everyone wants to be. Game 6 between the Nuggets and the Clippers apparently happened Sunday around noon. I didn't even know that. It got buried among all the NFL stuff, which is nuts to me.
I mean, if you were watching NFL Count on ESPN, you would have known about it because they were teasing it, as they approached noon. But yeah, I mean, I didn't watch. I take that back. I did watch about 3 minutes of Clippers. I think they were down 16 points in the third quarter, and I saw Twitter was freaking out that they cut it to like a 5-point game. So I flipped the game on for a little bit. Just to see what was happening. But, yeah, I mean, the NFL's king in this country. We all know that. Everybody, I mean, Justin, who's not a football fan at all, knows that the NFL is king in this country. And here we are, a soccer podcast, talking about week 1 of the NFL.
Yeah. Hey, and Mr. Negative, tank for Trevor, what are the odds the Vikings go 0-16?
Not great. I mean, look, don't go 0-16. Go 1-15, at least win a game. You don't want to be like the whatever.
Okay, but give me the odds. What are the chances that the Vikings?
I think the Browns did it a couple of years ago too, actually, 0-16, and the Lions did it within the last 10 or 15 years. But you don't want to go 0-16. You don't want to be that guy.
Don't want to be that guy. Okay, but the Vikings aren't going to go 0-16.
No, we're not going 16. We're not that bad.
Anyway, okay, on today's episode, listeners, we're talking about U.S. men's national team players abroad. Who are we excited for? What are the expectations with some of these players? And Jake, there's some very good American players in Europe, gonna write some massive headlines this season.
Yeah, and Steve, I think we should talk about some of the more obvious players over in Europe. I mean, obviously Christian Pulisic with Chelsea. You have Zach Steffen at Manchester City, and going to Germany. You could argue maybe the most important players to this men's national team, maybe in the next 4 to 12 years, with Tyler Adams at Leipzig, Gio Reyna at Dortmund, and I cannot underestimate. Not underestimate, but I don't know what the right word is to describe this. Josh Sargent is arguably, in terms of the U.S. men's national team going forward, the most important player for this national team. Because if he does not develop into a serviceable striker after Josie Altidore, who is getting older by the minute, this team has nothing. This team has nothing.
I disagree.
At that position.
I disagree. I think Christian Pulisic could be the leading goal scorer when it comes to qualification, when it comes to these tournaments.
But you don't want Christian Pulisic playing striker.
No, but is Messi a striker? Is Ronaldo really a striker? I mean, when we talk about the most important player for a team, I don't always think it's a striker. You need a serviceable striker. And as we've talked about on this show for the last 2 years, we are very thin at the striker position.
I don't think if Sargent misses, it'll be the end of the world for us. I think Timothy Weah can still play at striker. I still think Ayo Akinola is a viable option that's coming through at Toronto.
That's if he picks the U.S. to play.
I don't see how he goes from representing us at almost every youth national team level, having Greg Berhalter like in his ear at the MLS's Back tournament, and then just saying, "Nah, I want to play for Canada." Like he's literally playing with Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore at Toronto.
Justin,
I don't see it.
But he is playing in Toronto, and you do. I mean. I think the Canadian national team's on the up. Maybe somebody pitches him this idea of,
okay,
let's bring the Canadian national team to something worthwhile in CONCACAF, where maybe they could sneak into the final of a Gold Cup or something like that.
Let me hit you with this. And granted, I think Akinola is probably going to make his decision before qualifying, right? I mean, would we assume that? I mean,
he's going to have to, I think.
What if Canada goes, hey, you pick us, we're going to pencil you in World Cup qualifiers when they start? Next September?
Yeah, in 2021.
The U.S. isn't going to for sure pencil them in because they have Altidore and they have Sargent.
Yeah, but they have Altidore and they have Sargent, and then who's going to fill the third spot? It's anybody's guess.
Jossie Zardes. There's your guess. I mean, that's the...
Yeah, but then, okay, so you pencil in Jossie Zardes. What's the likelihood that Altidore's hamstrings haven't given out on him by whatever he
that's
or like that Josh Sargent is actually playing well for Werder Bremen. Not that he hasn't. He's on a fairly, underwhelming team. But, at the same time, if Akinola's scoring goals, if he picks up form for Toronto going into 2021, and Sargent's not doing that with Werder Bremen, regardless of how they're playing, I would rather have Akinola, who's on confidence, get that call-up. I see what you're saying, but I really think that Canada's chances of signing him or capping him before us are pretty slim.
No, I get that. I guess the way I look at it is I look at it from the standpoint of how the U.S. got Julian Green to commit to playing for the national team, which was, we're going to give you a World Cup spot. And I think if Canada was in that position, let's just say we get to the qualifying and he hasn't made a decision or been cap tied to a national team, which I don't think he would be between now and then. If Canada says, we'll pencil you in for qualifying, if we qualify for the World Cup, you'll be in the squad, and the U.S. hasn't made that approach to him, and you have Sargent, you have Altidore in front of him, like you said, if Altidore's healthy or isn't healthy, maybe this is a totally different question, but if he is healthy, and with Zardes there too, which Berhalter's shown he likes to roll with Jossie Zardes quite a bit, I just don't know how he's part of the equation here, come a year from now.
Well, even if he doesn't make the senior national team, if you're Akinola, we want you to be our main guy for the Olympic team. would you rather be the main guy of an Olympic team and go to potentially qualify for the Olympics, or commit yourself to Canada?
This is an interesting question because Steven and I have had this debate about the importance of the Olympics as it relates to international soccer. And I know Steven doesn't think it really holds all that much water anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I've taken a 180 on this.
Okay, all right.
And here's my rationale. Is I've been okay. Well, here goes the stereotypical Stevens line. I've been watching the Swiss national team, and actually the U21 team is currently undefeated in the U21 European Championship qualification, and they're in the group with France. And I think these tournaments are valuable because I just genuinely think you need game time. That's all that matters. I want to. For me, it's a good exposure to see these young players. But the funny thing is, I was looking at the U21 roster for Switzerland, and a lot of these players are making moves to bigger clubs, especially the star U21 players. And I just don't know if you can say that yet with the U.S. men's national team. I think we're getting there. I think we have a lot of young talent. But how many players at the age of 20 in the U.S. system have made that leap somewhere? Either they're still in the academy process, like a Gio Reyna, whether he's still at Dortmund. But by the time the U.S. player here in America, if they take the traditional route, which is college and then MLS, they're already 23, 24. It's more. I think it's almost more important for the U.S. men's national team now to qualify for these youth tournaments than it is ever in history, because this is when you lay the foundation, and when you have these players who are dual nationals, whether it's a Mexican American or wherever, if they come from Latin America, Africa, Europe, it is an excellent way for them to get exposed to the national team, and hopefully you can cap them in an important qualification game when they are that roster spots between 20 and 23, where you fill it out, you bring a young guy, you get him exposed, you cap tie him, and you move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think regardless of how people view the Olympics as an international soccer tournament or just in general, like it's no denying that the prospect of winning an Olympic gold medal would catch a young player's attention. Like I don't like, that's the one thing I don't get with people who don't see the value in the Olympics, is that like there is value in it, because what person would not want to win a gold medal if the opportunity is there? You know, like that's an opportunity to not only write your name in, like, you know, your country's history, but just in Olympic history in general. Like that's huge.
I don't know what the U.S. the men's side. I don't know if I would agree with that. I don't think players look at it, because it is a U23 competition, as something to the resume. Like, we know Neymar has a gold medal, but or Messi actually has a gold medal, but that's the only thing he's won with the Argentinian national team, I guess. It doesn't carry any weight. It's like whatever. So I think what's important is the game time and competition. I don't think if the U.S. won a gold medal, I know every American would be freaking out, but the world of soccer on the global stage would be like, okay, cool. What does it mean when you are playing in a Copa America, if that ever arises, or the World Cup?
But that's what I mean. I think in regards to the conversation with Akinola, that the opportunity to be on a national team that could potentially qualify for the Olympics for Americans and for American players, like that's huge, is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world thinks. It matters only to us, in that we are giving these players the opportunity to win competitions like this, that they're excited to play and that they're excited to like potentially win. It doesn't matter if Germans think it's a useless tournament. For us, we're getting players who are potentially Canadian or Nigerian national team players. I don't care if German people think the Olympics is, you know, practically like a
but we should.
International friendly.
Yeah, you're right. No one cares. But what I want to say is I don't care if the U.S. win the gold medal or not. I care if the right players are playing. I want the game time over the stupid medal. Yes, on the women's side, a whole different argument, because you have the world's best women's soccer players playing the Olympics. On the men's side, I don't know how many players that you say played in the Olympics ultimately pan out and have a long-term career? Because I don't pay attention to Olympic soccer whatsoever on the men's side. I don't care who wins the gold medal.
I mean, this is what it comes down to for me. I think when you're the U.S. men's national team, when you're U.S. soccer, any victory in a tournament is a step in the positive direction. And you can look, if you want to say the Germans don't care about the Olympics. Okay, all right, let's take a step back here. It's a U23 tournament. So the players that are playing in the Olympics are your next generation. Those are the players you're going to look to say, these are the guys that are going to get us to the World Cup. These are the guys that are potentially going to win us the World Cup. Now, if you're the U.S., maybe not so much win us the World Cup, but maybe you're the U.S. thinking these are the guys that are going to get us to a fifth game, or potentially I don't know if the sixth game in the World Cup is a semifinal or if it's a quarterfinal, but you get what I'm saying. These are the guys that are going to get us out of the round of 16 and beyond. And if they're winning on the world stage with the Olympics, you would hope that maybe a few of those players pan out to being a Christian Pulisic or a Tyler Adams or a Weston McKennie or a Serginho Dest, something of that nature. Because the chances are, if you're competing for a gold medal, that group of players is going to churn out 2 or 3 or maybe good players for you,
Jake,
over the next 4 to 8 years.
We'll pause on that note for a second because I want to quiz you two and listeners at Uncle Sam Soccer Pod. Some of this was already mentioned, but who won the gold medal? Actually, who won the gold and silver medal in the 2016 Olympics? So the gold. Brazil.
It was Brazil, and was it Nigeria, the other team?
Brazil, yes. Who was the other team without looking it up?
I'm not looking it up.
I know.
That finished second to them?
Yeah. Who was in the final? Who was in the gold medal game in the 2016 Rio Olympics?
I would just guess Germany, if anything.
Correct. Let's go
to...
I
didn't know. That was a guess.
No, that's fine. Who was at the 20... Go ahead, Jake.
Did Nigeria play the third place game?
I don't. I only have the finals list.
Who even cares then?
Well, there you go. Actually, you're right. Nigeria did win bronze medal.
Hey, all right. We nailed the podium on this podcast.
There you go. What about 2012 London Olympics?
Well, oof.
That was Mexico, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Runners up.
One recently.
Brazil, bronze medal South Korea. 2018 Beijing Olympics, Argentina, Nigeria, Brazil. 2004 Athens Olympics, Argentina, Paraguay, Italy. I just don't know, Jake, if we can look to it, especially the Mexican team, whether or not winning the gold medal ultimately.
I'm not saying that if you win the gold medal, that you're gonna take those 11 guys, or those 18 guys on that team, and you can just plug them into your national team for the next 10 years. What I'm saying is, if you win the gold medal, chances are there's 2 or 3 players on that team who you can then look at and plug them into your national team for the next 8 to 10 years.
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. It's not about every generation turning into. You don't look at the team that you don't think, like the U17s that was supposed to be really good for the U.S. or the U19s, whatever age group it was that went deep into the World Cup last year. You don't look at that team and go, these are the 18 guys that are then going to lead us to the promised land, 8 years from now. You go, okay, you identify who are the 2 to 3, potentially 4 guys in this group that are going to be mainstays in the national team. That's what you look for.
Sure.
And if you can say that, they won the gold medal, you can say chances are that group of players is probably pretty good, and the top guys on that team are probably really good. And maybe the rest of those guys are maybe depth players. Maybe they're guys that fill out the bench, or a couple of those other extra guys fill out the bench for the national team moving forward. But what I'm saying is, each generation for that age group, you want to get a couple guys out of there that are plugins. And I'm not saying plugins in the fact that like Tim Ream, like who cares about Tim Ream? He's on our list here if we talk about the Americans abroad here. what I'm saying is you want guys like McKinney, or you want guys like Reggie Cannon or Pulisic or whomever, guys that you look towards and go, these guys are going to be fixtures in this national team lineup moving forward.
And to Jake's point, before we move on to some of the other players that we're supposed to be talking about, Marquinhos was on that Olympic team for Brazil. Rafinha, Fred, Douglas Costa, Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, and Gabriel Barbosa. Gabigol is like his nickname, who went to Inter and kind of flopped there and then went to Benfica. But there were some pretty big names.
I would say Brazil. Tough argument because it's Brazil. They always have world-class players. I would be interested to know whether that Mexican team in 2012, which now we're 8 years removed, so those players are arguably in their prime, how many of them are with the national team? I think that would be an interesting look in. Now, Jake, Justin, listeners, there are like a lot of these American players abroad writing these headlines for this upcoming season that we're really interested in. In the Premier League, you got Christian Pulisic, obviously at Chelsea, Zach Steffen at City. At Fulham, you got two Americans, Anton Robinson and Tim Ream. Can't forget about DeAndre Yedlin at Newcastle. In the Bundesliga, Tyler Adams at Leipzig, Gio Reyna at Dortmund, Josh Sargent at Werder Bremen. In Italy, who we're going to discuss here in a minute, Weston McKennie at Juventus. In Portugal, you got FC Dallas product Reggie Cannon at Bovavista. In Turkey, Tyler Boyd at Besiktas. And then we can't forget about Serginho Dest at Ajax. So there is quite a list of Americans to pay attention to in this upcoming season.
Steven.
What?
By the way, I just want to tell you, I Googled that 2012 gold medal winning Mexican
give it to me. Tell me
team,
I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Games that are worth mentioning, sir. You, sir, were wrong. Marco Fabian, that's somebody worth mentioning. A guy, I don't know if you've heard of him. He goes by the name of Raul Jimenez. I think he's lighting it up for Wolves.
Yep.
Another guy here was once a DP with the LA Galaxy. Giovanni Dos Santos was also on that 2012 gold medal winning Mexican national team, and Hector Herrera was also on the team as well. So, Steven, you're wrong. I just named 4 guys on that team that ended up having pretty good careers, club careers, that is. And I think that just goes to show you my example that I'm setting here is you need 3.
Okay, do you want me to write you my apology letter? And we can move on. Okay, Jake.
That is what I want.
Dear Jake, I'm sorry I was wrong. And Justin, I might as well write it for both of you. Here's my apology letter. We're moving on. Question of the day, listeners, at Uncle Sam Soccer Pod. Justin, we'll go to you first here. Which player are you most excited to watch?
I think it's Tyler Adams. I mean, that's an incredibly biased opinion, but honestly, I think even more than last year, he's going to get more opportunities to start. And I think it was Conrad Leimer that just got injured, so he's going to be out for a month or something. And that means Tyler Adams has a clear shot at playing in an actual center midfield role as opposed to playing as a right back. So I'm just interested to see how he does there. And I think Anthony Robinson's a close second, just because he finally got that move away from Wigan. He's going to be playing in the Premier League. And after that 3-0 loss to Arsenal, I can almost guarantee that he will see the field at some point relatively soon, considering whatever they did last game did not work out very well.
Yeah, that's definitely a name worthwhile watching. And don't forget, the Bundesliga will be on ESPN Plus this upcoming season. So I would assume there's more exposure to the to the American players playing in the Bundesliga.
Okay, boys. Do you want to hear who I'm excited for?
Let me guess.
You want to hear it? Let me. First of all, let me just pull this cork out of this bottle here. I just want to get this good sound effect. There it is. Here, let's pour a drink while we talk about who I'm most excited for. Now, this was a tough decision for me because my my head wanted to say Gio Reyna, and I think a lot of American fans, a lot of U.S. soccer fans would say Gio Reyna. However, I think for myself, actually, and this is a guy I'm not really a big fan of to begin with, I want to see what Weston McKennie can do at Juventus. I want to see what becomes of Weston McKennie at the old lady of Italian soccer. I want to see, can he find a way to get himself into meaningful matches with that club? Because if he can, first of all, Steven and I, because I know Steven's not a big fan of Weston McKennie either, we're going to eat a lot of crow.
Yeah.
And we're big fans of eating crow on this show because we do it quite a bit. But I think Weston McKennie moving to Juventus, if he can find a way to become a fixture in that
Andre
18, I guess.
Pirlo managed team, who is younger than the goalkeeper Buffon. How strange is that? They were teammates.
Yeah. I just want to see
a couple years ago.
I think on this list, I think McKennie is probably the most interesting because if he sinks, I mean, we're talking about next year, probably another move away from Schalke. And at that point, is he going to Italy? Is he going to a mid-table German club? Is he going to Southampton or Aston Villa, assuming neither one of them is relegated out of the Premier League this year? Or if he performs well, is he now a mainstay at Juventus? Is he part of that midfield core? Is he playing with Ronaldo? Like, think about that. In terms of U.S. soccer, we have a player who's playing with one of the top 3 best players in the world right now.
He's the best player of this generation.
We're not going to I think optically it's great to see Weston on the field with players like Ronaldo and like Dybala and Buffon, Pirlo coaching him. As far as like him, like what this year could mean for him, I'm pretty sure there's a clause in the deal that Juve made with Schalke that if they qualify for Champions League, they have to sign McKennie on a permanent deal. So
is that the option to buy? Is that why they word option to buy into it?
Actually,
there's no way they don't qualify for the Champions League, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know 100% on the details of that, but I saw that floating around in some places. So
Justin, apparently it's actually 60% if he plays or appears in 60% of Juventus matches.
I was going to say, because the only way they're not qualifying for the Champions League is if they're fixing matches again and they get caught. That's the only way they're not qualifying for the Champions League.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, like after his first friendly with Juve, there was a lot of positive, not just from U.S. fans, like from people who follow Juve and are Juve fans, were saying like he's brought more life to that midfield in that one friendly than they had for most of last season. So if he has that type of impact, even if it is a friendly in this first game, like I'm excited about what's to come.
That's what you want to hear in a friendly, right? That's what you want to hear from the new guy. He brings a lot of energy. He's fun to be with. And I think the Juventus team, especially of last season, was somewhat old in that midfield. And Pirlo, if you listen to some of the commentary, Weston McKennie kind of fits what Pirlo wants. Box to box, high intensity, high energy. He's young. He's got something to prove. Because is this, I mean, in some sense, do you think this is McKennie's last big opportunity to make a name for himself, being so young and risking it going to one of the elite clubs of European soccer?
Okay, I'm the negative voice in this podcast. You know what I'm going to say. How old is he? What, 23 years old? Justin, is that right? 23?
21.
21?
Yeah.
I feel like Weston McKennie's much older than 21.
Well, that just goes to show how long he's been around the professional game.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. You are correct. However, I think Steven's right. I think if he
flops here... He just turned 22. A couple weeks ago.
There you have it. I think if he flops at Juventus, I don't know. Who's to say he doesn't go to Hertha? Let's say Hertha revisits this potential move for him, or Southampton. And who's to say he doesn't go to Southampton and is like, wow, Weston McKennie really flourished at Southampton, and now all of a sudden, like, what are we defining as a big club? Like, if Arsenal comes in 2 years and is like, hey, we want Weston McKennie, you're going to go, That's not a big club anymore. I mean, I don't think Arsenal's a big club. Now, Steven, you're the resident Arsenal fan of this podcast. What are you going to say? I put you on the spotlight here. Are you willing to say Arsenal's a mid-table club now?
No, because I think they'll finish top 4.
Is that a big club? If let's say 3 years
yes,
now,
it's only a big club because it's in England. It sells. And I think, to be honest, I think as much as this was a soccer move by Juventus, I also thought, let's see, is there an American player that we can go out there? Because think about how many more eyeballs are now on Juventus in America. How many more kits will Juventus sell because there's an American player? I mean, he's the first American player to play for Juventus, the old lady. There's a little bit of a marketing incentive for some of these clubs to go after an American player.
I don't know if you just go out and throw, what do they throw, $3 million at the loan, and then there's, $18, $20 million option to buy. We're in a pandemic. These teams lost a ton of money. I don't know if they're still willing to just throw cash around like it's
a quick fit. But to me, this is a quick.
I think it benefits them marketing wise, but I think the amount of money they spent on him just goes to show how much they want him and believe in him. Like, I don't think you spend that money just cause or just to make.
I would say that 60%. I'd be very interested to know how often Juventus plays him in the final 10, 12 matches. Because if they look at it and go, do we really want to buy you Weston McKennie? Well, we're on the hook if we play so many matches. Well, okay, don't play him. Tell Pirlo, you can't play Weston McKennie because we're not going to buy him in the offseason. We don't want him on our books anymore. We'll suck up the $3 million. And then he's not playing for 2 months. I could perfectly see that happening. It wouldn't put it's we're talking about an Italian team. We're talking about finances. These people ultimately are business people. They're going to look at the business. They're going to look at the business aspect. And if Weston McKennie does not fit what Juventus want after half a season, I predict that he's not going to play as much in the second part, especially if he has an option to buy based on how many matches that he appears in. I disagree.
Let's say Weston McKennie ends up being one of the 3 or 4 best midfielders for Juventus, and let's just say Inter is challenging Juventus for for the Serie A title. If you're Juventus, how do you go? Oh, damn it, we don't want to spend $22 million on Weston McKennie. How do you say that?
Wait, but it doesn't make sense. If he's playing well and he's a good player, of course Juventus should play him and will play him.
Then that answers your
but
question.
my question is if he doesn't play well for Juventus, what does Juventus do?
The 60% clause. Look, if he's not playing well, he's not coming close to that 60%. He's not coming close.
Okay, but what if for some reason injuries happen because they're common? What if Pirlo is forced to play him at least half the season, the beginning half of the season?
Honestly, I understand where the concern is coming from, but I honestly think it's just a little too cynical, like, to look at it that way right now. I don't know. I just like to just automatically think like worst case scenario, like that could happen for anybody. It's not just because he's American that it can happen, or because he's Weston McKennie it could happen. Like, I think it's a very much a concern because that concerned at this point.
Well, in 2021, the U.S. men's national team will be playing. Will be trying to qualify for the World Cup. We'll be playing the Nations League. You want your players playing regardless if it's in the Championship, Champions League, or in MLS. You want these players consistently playing, especially a 22-year-old. And we don't know. We simply do not know how much playing time he will get. At Schalke, we knew that he was pretty much in the lineup day in and day out. At Juventus, we don't know. And he's taking a gamble on himself. Juventus is taking a gamble because there's obviously money spent. But if Weston McKennie reaches his ceiling, then it's a great investment, and every American fan will be absolutely through the roof. Look at this guy; he's playing at Juventus. But there's
no gamble. There's no gamble. Here's the thing: the permanent clause, they put the 60% clause. That's a pretty low. That's half the games, basically, a little over half the games. And the fact that Juventus agreed to that probably tells you that they intend to buy him.
Their midfield is also like really thin.
It's
I mean, the
super
only
old
players
too. They
he's
have
really
a super old midfield too. Like they want Khedira gone. I don't know if he's. I believe I saw that. And
all he's really competing against for a spot is Bentancur, Rabiot, Artur, and maybe Aaron Ramsey if he doesn't leave too, because I know they want to get rid of him. So to say that they're going to stick with those four midfielders and not just refuse to play Weston McKennie for whatever reason, and that's if the four of them don't get some type of injury or suspension either. Like right. I think
there's no way in hell he doesn't get to 60%.
Yeah, I don't know.
No way.
I think the concern for him not playing is a little too cynical, but like I understand where that concern can come.
Okay, let's just say he gets 60% this year, and then Juventus goes, God damn, we don't want to be stuck with this guy next year. What's the worst thing that happens? They loan him out back to a team like of Schalke's stature or a mid-table La Liga team. He's not gonna get. Look, Juventus, I get it. They're the giants of Italian soccer. But he's not going to get buried there to the point where he's just not ever going to see the field. He's just going to be,
but I have seen too many players. No, I have seen too many players at a young age get bought by a big club and they don't fit the bill, and then they're passed around. And my concern for Weston McKennie
is. If your concern is he's not getting playing time, if he's getting passed around, he's probably getting playing time.
Okay.
Unless he's bad. Unless he's so damn bad that he's not getting playing time, which I have a hard time believing. If you can play at Schalke, you can probably play for 95% of the teams in Europe. Okay? And
You're right.
If you can play for Schalke,
but this is
for 100% of the teams in MLS.
Weston McKennie is gambling on himself because what other big club is going to look at Weston McKennie?
This is the same conversation we had last summer when we said Christian Pulisic, he's really gambling on himself by going to Chelsea.
And it paid off. It paid off.
They paid $70 million for him. And we sat here in this podcast, and I'm guilty of this too. And we thought, I mean, at this time last year, the Premier League was a month into their season. We sat and he wasn't performing well. He wasn't making the starting 11. And we sat here and said, is he going to get loaned back to Dortmund? Is he going to get loaned somewhere? He's not.
Because Chelsea have that reputation.
They do. And I don't think Juventus has that reputation.
How many players were Batshuayi was bought by Dortmund not too long ago, and he's already out the door. And he supposedly had a high season.
Juventus isn't going to just loan him out to the Portos of the world. Sorry, Justin, or the mid-table Premier League team X. They're not going to do that. This is different. They're not. He's going to get playing time. Like I said, 60%. If you look at 60% of their matches, you got the Italian Cup. I don't know what the hell they call it, Coppa Italia or something like that. You have the Serie A season. You have the Champions League. He's going to play in 60%.
And you also have a January transfer window market, which Juventus go in, get another cheap midfielder. And we don't know what's going to happen. I'm simply saying, I think it's Justin, you might call it cynical. I think it's a worthwhile discussion having.
Midfield's old.
Nah, they've sold off. Matuidi's gone. He's at Inter Miami. Gonzalo Higuain's gone. Inter Miami.
Pirlo wants to overturn that.
He wants Young, yes. And apparently Weston McKennie fits what Pirlo wants. And it's great. If he gets playing time, sure. I'm just simply saying is there could be a very small percentage where he plays in the first half of the season. Pirlo and Juventus sit there and have a discussion in January where they don't like what McKennie brings, or they think he just doesn't cut it. And either they say, okay, we can buy another midfielder, Weston McKennie sits on the bench, or Schalke recalls him, or something happens where his playing time in the second half of the season doesn't match the first half, and we'll be questioning why. That's simply all.
Well, you know what? You know what, though? At least he tried. No. I'm not saying to be cynical.
Wow.
His best effort. But the thing is, at least he put himself in a position to try to break through
Absolutely.
at a big club
And I think
at Juventus.
Yep,
and how many players or how many? And I'm not saying every player ever should.
Jake, your favorite American, Jordan
chance.
Morris.
That's what I was going to. I'm not saying every player should have the opportunity to get a crack at Juventus or clubs of that stature. But I mean that's the perfect example. He didn't even attempt to at least make or take the jump or take the risk to try and become something in Europe. He settled for the Seattle Sounders, and that's the completely different debate on the show about MLS and we need quality players in MLS and blah 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 blah. But if Weston McKennie falls on his face, he can always go back to a club like Schalke.
All right.
At the end of the day, with this national team, if you have a player that's at a club like Schalke, and I get it, they're not what they were 2 years ago. They're not a Champions League. I don't know if they're probably fighting off relegation in the Bundesliga this year. But if you have a player that's at a mid-table club in a top 5 league, if you're a U.S. men's national team fan, you'll take that over a guy playing in MLS.
Yep.
And that's how it breaks at the end of the day.
Agreed. Justin,
Steven,
we'll give you the final words.
If you've aired out all of the worst case scenarios now, who are you most excited for?
Oh, we didn't even ask
season?
you. We just spent the last 15 minutes talking about Weston McKennie. We didn't even ask Steven who he's most excited about. I know we're up against the clock, but I know he's got to tell us.
Weston McKennie. I want to know if he has. Okay. I want to see if he has, because I'm telling you, he took a gamble on himself, and I respect that. I absolutely do, and I admire him for it. And this is what we need more of the U.S. men's national team players is to take the risk. As Klinsmann said, go to Europe and try it. Because if he fails in Europe, you don't think FC Dallas would want him. He's from Little Elm, Texas, the FC Dallas's backyard. You don't think a huge club like LAFC would take Weston McKennie? He's like, every American player has always this, fallback of MLS to go into, make a decent amount of money playing soccer, and maybe you kind of you get your groove back and make it back to the U.S. men's national team. If not, continue playing for the U.S. men's national team. But it's McKennie, and then I'm going to go with the obvious, Christian Pulisic, because I would love to see, I think he could potentially break out, and he might be in contention for Player of the Year when it comes time in April.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. You ready for this? Put this down, listeners, at OngSam Soccer Pod, at Jake Watroba, at Justin Sosa 99, and at Steven Jodaran. I'm going to say it right now. Pulisic awarded the number 10 shirt at Chelsea. Let's just say he wins Player of the Year in the Premier League. Is he Lionel Messi's replacement the following year at Barcelona?
You're stealing my take. You're stealing my take.
Whoa, and that could be a hot take. You can at Old Takes expose me if you want to. If this doesn't pan out, I don't care. That would be quite an honor for myself.
Jake, wait. That's my take. That's my take. Give take credit.
Best exposure for the podcast if he doesn't do anything this year. If he falls in his face and we get Old Takes exposed, this is gonna be the best promotional stunt we've ever done. But I'm just saying, if he scores 15 goals, whatever, and has however many assists, and he wins Player of the Year for the Premier League, and all of a sudden he's got Barcelona sniffing around him, they lose Messi to City or David Beckham into Miami or NYCFC. I don't know, man. He might be the replacement for Messi at Barcelona. I don't know. Maybe it's Neymar, but maybe it's Christian Pulisic. I don't know. Just saying.
Justin, do you think that happens?
I mean, like, it could happen, but very later down the road. I don't think it's going to happen next year. Even if he were, like, I mean, is he even still the best player? Is he even still the best player on Chelsea's roster with Ziyech, Werner, and Havertz coming in? Okay. Not to knock his talent. I'm not saying he's bad or he's like declined or anything.
Yes.
I'm just saying they've signed 3 world-class players to play along with him, or potentially replace him if he doesn't keep up the form that he showed towards the end of this season.
They gave him the number 10, which means they look at him as their best player. I mean,
he is. He is.
Let's say
it right now.
He is. Let's say he lights the world on fire this year. Okay. Let's say he's healthy, lights England on fire, and Barcelona comes approaching Chelsea and says, "We'll give you $200 million for Christian Pulisic right now." You laugh at that, but maybe,
$200 million.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe the pandemic skews those numbers. I don't know. I mean,
$200 million. Jake.
What did
Neymar cost $222 million. He is not Neymar level. He might be 130.
You don't know that if like I said, if he is voted the best player in the Premier League this year, let's just say that. I mean, there's a lot of hypotheticals in this situation here. But if he is the best league or the best player in the Premier League and he's voted that, you don't think Barcelona comes knocking and says, we'll give you $200 million right now for Christian Pulisic? You think that's ridiculous?
No.
Let's not forget, Chelsea just gave $70-80 million for him last year? I don't believe they sold Eden Hazard, who didn't win Player of the Year, to Real Madrid, who was much older than Christian Pulisic. They sold Eden Hazard for, 120 mil to Real Madrid, somewhere in that ballpark? I mean, come on. He's 22, 23 years old at this time, next summer. He's Player of the Year.
It's
Messi
first
gone, 200 mil. I don't know, man. I don't think it's that.
No.
I don't think it's that crazy.
We'll see. At Jake Watroba, at Justin Sosa 99, at Steven Jodran. U.S. men's national team. Boy, did we get into it. Weston McKennie. Players to look out for. Question of the day. Which player are you most excited for? Jake's drinking as always. Jake, your player to look out for is Weston McKennie. Justin, your player, Tyler Adams. And let me just simply ask you, we're clearly over time here. Why Tyler Adams?
I think Tyler Adams, with his opportunity now to play in center midfield as opposed to that right back position, this is his chance to actually solidify that starting role, as opposed to being that he starts here and there, he comes on the bench. He starts here and there, he comes on the bench. And I also think we are looking at the progression of potentially the next long-term men's national team captain for a Champions League / potential Bundesliga title contending team. And I think this is a big year. I think he's dealt with injuries. I think he's dealt with the obstacles of having to fight players who are world class for that same position and having to play in a different position, because his coach needs him there or whatever it may be. He's had to overcome a lot of these mental hurdles and physical, obviously, with the injuries, that this might be the first actually get to see a full year of him.
Because if Tyler Adams comes into RB Leipzig and he performs really well, and I know I used Arsenal as an example earlier today, but there's no reason to believe that Tyler Adams could be playing for a team like Arsenal or a team like Tottenham or something like that. And
I mean, personally, for either team in the state that they're in right now, I really feel that those are.
But you know what I'm saying? A team like
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Whoa. If Tyler Adams played for a guy like Jose Mourinho,
they're playing in the Europa League. Are they not?
They might be, but I'm just saying, you play for a team like Tottenham or you play a club like that. I think Tyler Adams can play for a big club. Look, there's no reason to believe he can't play for a club like Chelsea or something like that too. I mean, but that's all I'm saying is that Tyler Adams could find himself on a good year. He could find himself at one of the bigger clubs in Europe next year or maybe 2 years from now. And that's another guy you can look at as a guy that we talked about Pulisic potentially playing at a Barcelona. That's another player who could find himself at a big club in the next year or two, and that I think is exciting if you're a U.S. men's national team fan. But that is it for today's show, listeners. Question of the day. We talked about it extensively on today's show. Which player are you most excited to watch this season? You can let us know on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. You can follow my boy Steven Jodran at Steven Jodran. He deleted Twitter off his phone, so don't expect anything from him this week. You can follow Justin Sosa at Justin Sosa 99. You can follow myself at Jake Watroba. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. We always appreciate that. For Justin and Steven, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys next time. Deuces.